Okay, so we'll start with introduction first. My name is Siti Fatiha, and then this is my partner.
My name is Erika.
Okay, she's our exchange students from Japan, so it's interesting. Okay, so this interview is for our assignments EIC403, intercultural communication. So to start with our interview, so for the first one, can you please introduce yourself? What is your name, your age, and how long have you been staying there, and which university are you studying, and what course are you studying right now?
Okay, so good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Hazim Hamizan, and I'm turning 20 this year, and I've been living in Karnataka, India, for 3 months. And now I'm currently studying medicine at University USM KLE for my first out of 10 semester. So I'm studying under scholarship with Mara, and I started my first semester in October last year. So yeah, that's my introduction.
All right.
So for next, have you ever visited the country before? And what are your first impression of the country?
Oh, as someone who grew up in a small town in Kelantan, I have never gone to other countries before. So this is my first time in India and first out of Malaysia as well. And my first impression of India was that the country is cold. The regular temperature in December was 28 degree and can go down to 18 degrees Celsius. I mean, that's not nearly as cool as winter, but for someone from Malaysia where the typical temperature is 34 degrees, that is relatively cold for me. Like before this, I never thought that India would be cold as it is not so known as a cold country. Plus, it is not a four-season country, so I didn't expect it to be cold. I thought it would just be like Malaysian weather. And then plus, I also can say that India is very dusty. It's very dusty, especially near the roadside. The pavement is poorly maintained, which I think is one of the reasons the environment is dusty. And it's better to wear face masks when going out. Like me myself, I have asthma, so whenever I'm going out, I will always wear a face mask when I'm in India.
Okay.
So yeah.
What are some of the sorry, I muted. Okay. For the next one, what are some of the challenges that you faced when you were here, when you were there for the first few months, and how did the challenges make you feel, and does it affect your communication skill?
So the biggest challenge for me is homesickness. I've never been this far from my family before. Yeah, I was in boarding school, but it wasn't the same. And at the time, my family couldn't still visit me on weekends, but it not this time around. So it was hard for like a few weeks as being far from home and family can be emotionally challenging apparently. And yes, it does affect my communication skill as it makes me feel lonely and gives me a sense of being out of place which had lowered my confidence and makes it hard for me to engage in conversation, like to express myself or even to like participate in discussion actively. So these emotions makes it difficult for me to focus on conversations which can lead to misunderstanding. And there was this time when My lecturer paused for questions, but I hesitated to raise my hand, even though I had a question. So I was scared about speaking in front of the class, and fear of sounding foolish prevented me actually from asking the questions. So I can say that it's a missed opportunity at the time. So yeah,
Yeah, I think we all have been there. Like when our lecturers like, "Do you have any question?" But we do have a question, but we like scared to ask, so we
yeah.
just like keep it to ourselves. Yeah. Next question.
So for next, do you oh, okay? Do you face any problems in doing your daily activities, like using public transport, grocery shopping, going to the bank, and buying food?
Oh, so like the first few weeks here, I had a problem with dogs. Dogs are everywhere on the campus. So they would just roam freely, and most of the time we would meet dogs on our way to and from our class. So like at first, I was really scared of them, especially if they would come close. But after that, I talked to my senior and they gave us some tips to avoid them. So the tip is that I would like to share. If you meet dogs, just simply ignore them and walk ahead. Don't show them what that you are scared. They would know if you're scared and keep following you around. And other than that, using public transport is another scary thing to do for me, especially if you have to take the bus. Buses in India are no joke. Getting on it is already a hassle and even harder to disembark. The bus would be so full that you can't even see the driver. I've seen one time one of the passenger was almost sit on the driver's lap. So for me, I would take auto to go anywhere in the city. It's like a tuk-tuk in Thailand where you can call them and they will pick you up at your location. Just like using Grab here instead of cars, they use rickshaws with engines.
Mm,
So yeah.
so like the videos we saw like on the internet as like it's not fake lah,
Yeah.
because like it's actually happens in India. And for next one, do you have any hard time finding mosque or performing prayers in the country?
So, Alhamdulillah, performing prayer is not as hard as I thought it would be. For like Jumu'ah prayer, we can pray on campus, so we don't have to go outside for prayer. But since the mosque is small and the space is limited, we would have three Jumu'ah prayer sessions to accommodate everyone in the campus. So like the lunch break here is also longer on Friday, so it's not a problem for us. So like as for a normal day, it's also not that big of a problem as we would have 2 hour break from 12 to 2 p.m. And Zohor here is around 12:30 p.m. So we have ample time to pray and to have lunch before starting the next class. However, the problem is at Asar time. So we would have class from 2 until 6 p.m. But Asar is at 3:47 and Maghrib is at 6:12. So that's the time where finding time for prayer is hard because usually in my case I would just excuse myself from the class and go away for a while. And the next would be my other classmates. Basically, they are just making turns. The lecturers are fine with it. They don't mind. And as for prayer, praying outside the campus, it's quite hard to find a mosque, but praying in the public is not really challenging. But I advise you to pray together with others as well, because like the people there don't mind praying in public. In India, they follow the Madhab Hanbali. So in terms of a mosque, it is hard for women to pray there because the Madhab doesn't encourage women to pray at the mosque. So some of
Mm.
my female friends usually have to open public places to pray. And but like I said, pray together with your friends is actually safer that way. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Go for next. Are there any specific cultural norms that were difficult for you to adapt to?
So, cultural norm that are hard to adapt to, just like I mentioned before, is taking the bus here is an adventure on its own, and buses here does not stop for us. So if we want to if we want to ride them, we have to jump in while the bus is moving. Plus, the buses here are always full, and other than that, they do not follow traffic light rules. Traffic lights are Traffic lights here are just for decoration. Nobody follows them. And they would just squeeze in any space available to get through the traffic. And what's worse is that they don't even follow the lane, even if the lane is for vehicles from opposite directions. They would still use them as long as they can get through as fast as they can. And honking culture here is also normal. Like if they don't like certain things, they would just honk at you. No mercy at all. Sometimes they honk for no reason at all. And lastly, the way they take care of the cleanliness. Actually, they don't care about it at all. They don't have any trash cans in the city. People would throw their rubbish all over and anywhere they want. So like one time I asked a shopkeeper where to throw my trash. He simply say anywhere you want with a smile on his face. And I was shocked by that reply, so I just keep the trash until we're back on campus. So yeah, that's it. I think a culture that is hard for me. So like in terms of communicating, there is not much of a difference compared to us in Malaysia.
Um, and for the next one, have you ever experienced cultural differences in classroom settings, like teaching styles, student-teacher interaction, or friend from other culture?
So yeah, like I mentioned, the classroom setting is quite similar to what we have in Malaysia, where it is a teacher-centered education where the teacher is the primary source of knowledge. The lecturer delivers information to the class through lectures, presentation, and also demonstrations. So we are expected to listen, take notes, and ask questions when appropriate. And next is the concept of time. So, like from my experience, people here are punctual, especially the lecturers. They would always start class on time and they expect you to be there at least 10 minutes earlier. And however, the problem arises when it comes to ending the class. Like most of the time, they always extend the class for 20 minutes longer than the usual class time. And so for me, it's hard, especially if we want to catch up like the prayer time. But we always remind that we always remind them that the class has finished every time. But even with a reminder, they would still extend it for like 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. For next, have you ever experienced racism or prejudice or stereotypes by the locals? And how do you deal with it?
So, yes, actually, I have. Not racism or prejudice, but more of stereotyping. So, like, from my experience, there are some of them that always assume that we can speak their language since we study in the country. They would speak Hindi to us, and for some others, even though we speak English, different accents makes it hard to understand each other. And like, but I'm currently taking classes to learn Hindi, Kannada, and Marathi. And I did pick up some words from the language now. And other than that, they assume that some Malaysian students are rich due to our country's economy in general, especially those people outside of campus. So if we want to go outside to buy something, they would have to be careful and always we will have to be careful and always negotiate the price as they tend to put like a higher price to us. Like sometimes, even when negotiating, they refuse to change the price. So I just got the same store that I'm used to only. And my advice is that if you want to visit India, we want and want to do grocery shopping, go to the supermarket instead, and it has fixed prices like for each item, so you won't have to face problems like this.
Yeah, I have like experienced the same thing where like you go to the a new country and then especially when like shops that do not have like label prices, so they tend to make up like higher prices for the tourists. And they always like take advantage of us. So it's good to go to like a proper grocery store. They have like fixed prices. So for next one is, do the locals lend a hand when you are asking for help, such as asking for direction?
Well, yes, because they are very helpful every time if we need help, not just with direction, but also when it comes to finding halal places to eat. Like, it's just that their English is quite hard to understand due to the strong Indian accent, but they will try to help. They will try their best to help us. Sometimes I still end up using Google Maps to get to places I want to go. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. So for next, how has your understanding of nonverbal communication changed since living in that country? And have you ever misinterpreted the nonverbal cues like expression and gestures?
So yes, I have. There was this one time I was talking to my lecturer about my assessment. As I was talking, he kept looking at me, which made me feel nervous. And every time I point out my ideas, he would just nod. He would just nod at me. So I thought he was agreeing at the ideas. But after he gave his comment, I found that he was nodding because he was listening to me, and as a sign that he was trying to understand me, not because he agreed with me. So, like, after the incident, I observed that Indians tend to do that when they are listening, and as they move their head a lot when communicating, but that doesn't necessarily mean they agree with you unless they want so, and or they would use a more deliberate nod to indicate that they understand. So, from that experience, I learned that um, even if they nod, I would assume them. If they agree with me, I would reassure them if they agree with me or not, so that I can avoid miscommunications.
All right. Next is how do you respond when misunderstandings arise due to differences in language or nonverbal communication?
Actually, like when any conflict happens, I would clarify actually to make sure that both parties understand each other. So sometimes we would just assume that meant we would just assume what they meant while communicating.
Yeah.
So this is why misunderstanding would arise. So my strategy is that I would use the simplest words to talk or to describe things with them. So like other than that, I would remind myself to be patient and respectful to everyone because communicating interculturally does take a lot of effort and time, but it does get better over time once I understand their culture a little better.
For next, what efforts do you what efforts do you make to understand and respect cultural differences?
So actually, there is not much efforts I did, but I always remind myself that there will always be differences once we live abroad. So like, I am not expecting everything to be similar as in Malaysia, but honestly, I enjoy seeing and learning about others as well because it teaches me that we should celebrate our differences instead of judging or questioning their culture. Like, after all, that's what makes us unique and different from others.
Okay, for the last question, based on your experience, what are the most important skills or personalities a person should have for resolving conflicts in intercultural communication?
So actually, like from my experience, the most important skill would be to be an open-minded person. So like conflicts would arise no matter what, but we can learn to reduce them by tolerating with others and try to discuss properly and make an effort to meet what both parties wanted. So like most importantly is to be brave, and if they do not understand us, don't be afraid to repeat until they can understand us. And plus, we have to adapt to the environment quickly because we can't afford to expect the culture to be the same in Malaysia, especially the people. So we have to adapt with the way they communicate instead of expecting they would do it for us.
So that's it, I guess, for
Yes.
our interview tonight. So like, if from your experience, would you recommend like for us to visit the countries?
I, I mean, like, if you want to be a tourist there, I guess that's fine. You can learn the culture. But to study here, I think you have to be prepared to that. So yeah.
Do you have anything to say, Erika?
No.
No. Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you so much, Hazim, for spending time with us tonight for the interview. Oh yeah. Can we like take pictures?
Yes.
Yeah, wait. Okay. Okay. Um. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Enjoy. Bye bye.